Greetings, all! Today, we'll be examining the common poison flying type Pokemon Zubat, its relatively uncommon evolution Golbat, and its rare final evolution Crobat, the three collectively known as the Bat Pokémon. A pain for those with sensitive hearing in need of some peace and quiet, the members of the Zubat family are agile winged mammals that can more than suck the life out of you if you're not careful about handling them.
Zubat have blue-furred bodies with a single pair of thin, featureless legs used merely for hooking into surfaces to hang from, and a single pair of wings with purple membranous flesh. They further possess rounded long ears and a mouth filled with a pair of sharp fangs on both the lower and upper jaws, with the eyes being totally absent from sight. Their evolved form, Golbat, have a similar form to them, though the legs now have a set of tubular feet that are perpendicular to the legs, as well as functioning eyes with pinprick black pupils. Their ears are much smaller in this form, while the mouths are much larger, taking up the span of their entire body. The final evolution Crobat are coated in bright purple fur with blue membranes on their wings, of which they now have 4 of for better flight control and agility. Their feet have little to no legs to attach to in this state, with just 3 small toes on each foot, their eyes having turned bright red with yellow sclera, their ears have elongated noticeably, and the mouths are now filled with larger teeth without anything in the way of exposed gums when their mouths are fully exposed.
The members of the Zubat family share a great deal in common with traditional bats, in particular, vampire bats.
While they might occasionally feed on small insects and even rodents in the case of Golbat, these creatures derive much of the nutrition from the energy of others, and specialize in being able to punch through the skin of many types of creatures with their fangs in order to absorb vital fluids. In fact, this behavior is so prolific among these species that they automatically begin with the absorb attack the moment they are born, with no other form of offense to speak of, and eventually gain access to the powerful leech life attack later on. Moreover, these creatures have a penchant for roosting in large numbers within caverns of all types, but interestingly enough, this is not because they are nocturnal. While the trait is most noticeable with Zubat, all 3 creatures within this family are particularly susceptible to the damaging effects of sunlight, as the skin is rather thin and easily burned by prolonged exposure. As a result, Zubat, Golbat, and Crobat prefer to remain inside darker areas in the daytime, though Zubat in particular will huddle together in large groups if it is too cold inside, and usually only travel outside in the night, though the degree to which they follow this basic routine is dependent upon the stage of evolution, as Golbat and Crobat are much more resistant to the sunlight than Zubat. Finally, as with normal bats, these creatures specialize in using echolocation to find their way in darkness without accidentally running into objects. While this function only usually applies to Zubat as a dominant component of their daily life, Crobat rely on it a great deal as well to prevent any accidents while flying at high speed, leaving Golbat as the only member of the family that merely uses its supersonic technique to confuse opponents and prey.
Regardless of the evolutionary stage, though, these creatures are all alike in that they're able to pursue their prey with both attacks and techniques without anything stopping their motion, not even flinching, giving them access to inner focus as their only base ability. Though individuals that are able to use their quick flight capabilities can also use it to weave around or even through defensive barriers in battle, granting them access to Infiltrator as a hidden ability.
As far as the stats are concerned in the case of Crobat, these creatures might not look to be all that sturdy, but they actually have the capacity to take notable punishment in the presence of an opponent with incredible speed at their side, having an above-average base attack stat for a fully evolved Poison-type Pokemon, an above-average base defense stat for a fully evolved Flying-type Pokemon, and above-average base HP and speed stats for a fully evolved Pokemon of both of their types, further possessing the highest base speed stat, type with Eternatus, and non-legendary, non-UB base stat total out of all Poison-type Pokemon, thus rendering them potent forces to go up against, have allowed to use their immense agility to their utmost advantage. Because their bodies are rather frail and easily damaged, Zubat spend most of their time within the confines of caves and almost never show their faces outside of these areas. As a result of their perpetual existence in darkness without much in the way of aromas, however, the anatomy of these creatures is repressed upon birth, leading to the complete loss of a nose altogether and the development of a thick flap of skin over their eyes. This effectively makes Zubat completely blind and prevents them from smelling anything, making them completely dependent upon echolocation for survival. In order to skillfully maneuver themselves around their environments, Zubat constantly release high-pitched screeches from their mouth to generate a permanent field of echoes that makes everything around them completely visible to their brains. Though interestingly enough, the exact frequency of the ultrasonic cries can differ slightly from colony to colony. This trait makes the supersonic technique of these creatures particularly annoying, as it can last an inordinate amount of time before dying down, and can easily create massive headaches in anything that listens to them for too long. Despite their frightening appearances though, Zubat are surprisingly weak creatures that have little in the way of actual defense for the majority of their lives, and are easy prey to predators that can outwit them. But this will not be such an easy task once they manage to evolve and gain their sight back, though they will still never be able to smell anything. It is lastly noted that, although Zubat prefer to nest within caves, their inability to see essentially means that any place that is not in the direct pathway of sunlight will do, so it is not uncommon to see these creatures underneath the eaves of houses in the daytime where they are otherwise easy targets for predators.
In terms of the sheer terror they can strike in others, Golbat dominate their family and are perhaps among the most frightening of beasts an novice trainer could ever encounter in the wild.
As with traditional vampire bats, Golbat garner much of their daily nutrition from the blood of others. The major difference is that they absolutely love the actual taste of blood, and they can drain over 10 ounces of blood in a single sitting, more than enough to prove lethal to smaller creatures, and plenty enough to share with others of their own kind if they are hungry. Golbat are much more predatory and vicious than Zubat, because evolution has dispelled the thick layer of skin that once covered their eyes, granting them full optical capabilities and allowing them to maneuver easily without having to use echolocation much at all to find their way. It is noted though that they nonetheless possess an improved echolocation system that enables them and Crobat to learn the Screech technique, whereas Zubat cannot. Golbat will usually spend most if not the entire night searching for a fresh victim to attack, either by flying or skillfully walking on their tiny feet, and will do little to bother others. But once they find a suitable target, they will swoop down rapidly and puncture the hides of the victim with their small but unbelievably sharp teeth to drain their blood through small siphon-like holes within the inner cavities of their teeth roots, designed specifically for this function. Golbat are able to puncture just about any kind of unarmored hide with their fangs, with steel-type armor being the only thing that can easily break their fangs and force them into hiding until they grow back, and are not very picky about who they attack, which ultimately means that even humans are on the list. This would not necessarily be a huge problem if it were not for the fact that Golbat will greedily gorge on the victims until they are so full of blood that their bodies become too heavy to even fly, leaving them to become potential prey items for ground-dwelling predators. Considering the shape that their victims are usually left in, though, a counterattack from them is usually out of the question. While this means that Golbat are able to effectively utilize Poison Fang and Leech Life attacks, the overall choice of moves is still fairly poor, so aside from a supersonic blast, these creatures have little else other than their sheer hunger to back them up in battle, in turn making them a limiting choice for professional combat under normal conditions.
Although Golbat are considered to be the fully grown adult form of their species, specimens that experience very happy lives or otherwise become able to shrug off their brutish ways and develop a strong relationship with another life form can spontaneously mutate and evolve into Crobat, though the exact reason for why, in this case, is currently unknown.
Evolution into Crobat provides these creatures with many benefits that would otherwise be unprecedented, most notably the addition of a second pair of wings. These wings are actually the result of their hind feet of Golbat mutating and becoming wings, while a small set of feet is grown directly underneath the bottom of their main body for support. With 4 wings, Crobat are able to counter the buffering of air rapid wing movement would normally generate, and thus can fly while producing almost no sound at all, or at least nothing discernible to the average ear, even in the most cramped of spaces without ever having to slow down. This gives these creatures an enormous tactical advantage in battle in the wild, as they can easily fly through even the most confined of spaces without losing speed, and readily sneak up on unsuspecting insect prey and opponents, striking without ever being noticed before hiding again. Moreover, Crobat are light enough that they only need to flap a single pair in order to support themselves in flight, though they will usually only do so and alternate between wing sets when on long journeys or otherwise exhausted. This anatomical design further makes these creatures unbelievably fast in the air, and allows them to learn the devastating cross-poison attack immediately after evolving, with their venom increasing in potency alongside this to give them access to the tailwind and toxic techniques with a bit of artificial help, making them the only member of the Zubat family able to truly make use of the natural type assignment in serious combat. However, as a result of a change in body form due to evolution, Crobat possess smaller fangs than Golbat and are unable to siphon blood in volumes as large as what a Golbat could drain, so they must feed more often in order to get the required nutrition and prevent themselves from becoming exhausted and unable to fly. The upside to this is that their incredibly sharp fangs and stylish movements allow them to sneak up more easily on prey items from a quick feeding, oftentimes going completely unnoticed. In addition, Crobat are poor walkers and are unable to do much with their hind legs aside from use them to crawl around or rest on tree branches and other objects, but this rarely has much of an impact on their performance in combat.
It's a pretty common joke that people are really not fond of the members of this family because of both their vampiric ways and their tendency to form massive swarms within caves that are otherwise hard to see in and thus hard to navigate. Zubat on their own aren't really that much of a serious threat for most, but it is less that part that is an issue and more along the lines of them just being a pain to get away from. The fact that they rarely ever dwell outside of darkness can at least mitigate this somewhat, but when you're in their territory, you won't have many other options other than to just run. Golbat give me the heebie-jeebies with the ludicrously large mouths and sharp fangs, and any sighting of them is likely going to freak out anyone that isn't prepared for them outright. Their grotesque forms might make it easier for them to feed off of larger animals, but it still creeps me out, and they're not a creature I would let within 20 feet of me if I had a choice. Crobat thankfully are much easier to work with compared to the pre-evolved forms, if only for the added power and speed that comes with evolution, and while they might not be as much of a blood-sucking threat as a Golbat, they are much more powerful as fighters and thus have my respect in that regard. Their capacity to stealthily swoop down to attack others without them usually being able to hear them helps to make these bats effective predators. And with moves like Cross Poison, they can finally be effective poison-type threats in battle that grass and fairy-type Pokemon will definitely need to be wary of for the sake of their own personal safety.
While they might not appear to have much going for them outside the fear they can cause, the members of the Zubat family are nonetheless potent beasts that can make good use of their frames to swiftly deal with others in the darkness of caverns and night. You might have to take really good care of them if you want to bring the best out of them, but it can be more than worth it if you're willing to give them a shot.
Just do yourself a favor and make sure you don't get in the way of the nightly feeding cycles if you can. Otherwise, they might just focus on you as an easy target and leave you in need of a blood transfusion once they've gotten their fill from you.
Thank you for watching this video. It brings me great joy to be able to speak to you all in the world each and every time we meet like this, to explore the many different facets of both the world of Pokemon as we know it, and the world as we live it, through every adventure we have with Pokemon by our side. If you'd like to, please subscribe, ring the bell and all that jazz, to keep yourself updated on content uploads and other materials of the like. You can also follow me on Twitter if you'd like to know right away when something new is uploaded, and my written works, from which most of this is based on, can be found on DeviantArt. Links to both can be found in the description down below. Remember that the world of Pokemon is a place full of wonder and mystery, and you never know what to expect. So, stay vigilant, keep watch, and always be prepared for the unexpected. Until next time, trainers and friends of all sorts, have a wonderful time.